Yes, we are live. Welcome back, my dear friends. This is episode number 88 on Zero Point Healing Show. And today we are going to discuss about how we can get rid of our emotional baggage and free our hearts. So that's our topic for today. And I have with me an amazing emotion code practitioner. So before I move on to her, just a short intro about me. So I'm Vishnupriya. I am the founder of Zero Point Healing. It is a web directory that I have built for holistic healing practitioners. It is zeropointhealing.com. So I'm certified in multiple different holistic healing modalities myself. And as I went through my journey, I found that these beautiful holistic healing tools is what I call it. It helped me open up into new possibilities. It showed me how I can live my life differently in totally with new perspective about life. And as I went through all of this, a lot of challenges, a lot of problems that I had in my life also started dissolving. And I started experiencing freedom in all areas of my life. So that's what brought me into this holistic healing world. But later as well, I found how beautiful it will be if we have a web directory of all holistic healing practitioners. So all of these holistic healing modalities is in one place. So that inspiration kind of helped me build this kind of platform. So if you are a holistic healing practitioner yourself, I welcome you to zeropointhealing.com. You can register for free. And if you're interested in such interview with me, you are welcome to contact me for that as well. All right, so I am now moving on to my beautiful guest here. So welcome, Liz. Thank you so much for coming to my show today. So tell us a little bit background about yourself, where you are from, and your background story of how you found emotion code and what made you become a practitioner.
Well, thank you, Vishnupriya. I'm very happy to be here today. I'm originally born in New York, and I have an extremely mixed background because my father himself was what they would call a second-generation immigrant, because his parents were Russian Jews who had taken the trip from Russia to the States very early in the century, and my mother was from the British West Indies, which is where I went to school for 5 or 6 years. We moved down there for some time, and then we moved back to New York. And now I'm living in Copenhagen, Denmark. So I'm very international sort of a person, and I feel myself a world citizen.
Beautiful.
So shall I say something about my experience in discovering the emotion code?
Yes, go ahead.
I have always been interested in alternative methods, and I came across Dr. Nelson's book, which I ordered and read. I was a little bit hesitant to try doing it completely on my own, so I contacted a woman that I connected to back in the States from Denmark, and we did a couple of sessions over the phone. And especially after the first one, I felt as when I went out to ride on my bike afterwards, I felt as though I had lost 5 kilos in that 1 hour session, because I felt as though so much had just gone away that I didn't need. And I began practicing on myself after a few sessions with her, and I practiced on family and friends. And finally, in 2017, at 18 rather, at the end of the year, I decided to get certified, even though I had been practicing for many years. Yeah.
That's so beautiful with that kind of a journey to, I think all of us go through that, when we first find these holistic healing modalities, we are like, how does that work? Is that even going to be helpful? How does, releasing emotions change my life, and all of those questions. So that's where I think we are coming to with the title as well, getting rid of our emotional baggage. So tell us about these emotions and how that actually plays a role in our lives.
Well, the situation is such that when we come into life, we're pretty much just completely new. But unavoidably, the world being as it is, we have experiences that are not so wonderful. And usually, hopefully, when you have an experience that isn't so great, the emotions that arise, the anger, the being overwhelmed or sorrowful or grieving, gets worked through after some time and goes away. But in many times, in many cases, we actually see that it doesn't. And it's a little bit as though then you went through that experience and there was sorrow from there. And then you had a little bag hanging here. And then you went through another experience and there was grief there. And then you have a larger backpack on. And before you know it, you have backpacks full of stones hanging all over you. And this understandably weighs you down. I know that in my life, there were a lot of times where I felt as though I should have been able to go at 80 kilometers an hour or 100 kilometers an hour, but I could never seem to make it at more than 30 or 40. And I wondered, what's in the way? And I really feel that I found a lot of what was in the way when I found the emotion code.
Yes.
So,
And
yeah.
yeah, maybe you can
Yes.
share. I was thinking you can share maybe your first time experience, right? So you might have gone through this childhood and understanding, and I mean, getting all of these emotions, and then first time maybe you experienced emotion code session. So tell us maybe a little bit about your aha moments, or maybe how you felt in your first session, and what it is that maybe you were able to release in that first
Yes.
session.
The first aha moment I had was already while I was reading the book, because through the things that were described there, I was one of the kinds of people who believed very much in healing, but I thought it was something that had to happen when you were directly in person there with the person. And although that might be better and it might be necessary with some forms of healing, I was a bit skeptical about distance healing until I read a lot of the science that is actually presented about it, where you can see that they can remove cells from a person's body, put them 50 kilometers away, do something that affects the person's body, and the cells are also reacting. It shows that energy means, and the fact that we are energy means that things are connected in a way that I hadn't understood before. And I really found this out working over the phone with this woman that I contacted for my first session. I was completely surprised by the things that she picked up about me and the emotions that she found and how I felt when she was releasing them. Because since then, I've also found out that sometimes I meet a person, many of the clients I have handled, I don't know anything about them more than their name and their age, perhaps. And then when I look for an emotion and I find one and I ask, what age is this from? And when I get the age, they'll say, oh, that's the year my mother died. Or, oh, that's when I had that relationship I felt so terrible about. Oh, that's when I gave birth to my child. And things like that, that I never could have known. And for me, this shows that what's happening is that you really can energetically form a connection with another person's subconscious, because it is not just me who's finding these things. It's the own person's subconscious and my connection to some higher power. You can call it whatever you want. All that is, what we all come from, where we all are connected. But with a connection to that and to the person, you actually experience that it's as though it's kind of like an amplifier, you might say, that you act as an amplifier for their own feelings, something that I would not be able to find myself. I have had other practitioners work on me and find, because when you make the connection, there's something more there.
Yes, and I think in even my first time experience with emotion code, I think it's that factor with emotion code that I felt really surprising that somebody else on other part of the world is able to tell that, oh, at 4 years age you had, some sadness, or at 7 years age there was, disappointment. What did you feel disappointment for? And then immediately I get the memory of, oh yes, at 7 years age we had this kind of shifting that we were doing with our plays, and I felt really disappointed that I had to leave my school at that time. So that was a really eye-opening. The aha moment about the whole emotion code is, how does somebody else sitting on other part of the world understand or know that at 7 years age I had something going on in my life, right? So for me, that was something that I really, really love about emotion code as well. So now tell us a little bit about what happens inside a session. So let's say a client has come to you for doing a session. So tell us maybe what kind of emotions, how are these emotions released, how are these emotions identified?
Okay. Well, the session always takes place so that I would usually ask the client, first of all, for their permission to connect to them energetically. And I would usually say a little silent prayer asking to be connected to the higher power that can connect us all. And then I will ask them if there's anything in particular. Sometimes they might have some physical pain or something that they would like to have resolved, or a situation in their lives that is really giving them trouble. And then focusing in on that, I ask if there is any kind of an imbalance, any kind of a trapped emotion that is at the base of this imbalance that's going on. And I have not yet met anyone where you can't find something. And when this comes up, then we can actually release it. It's very simple. Those who may know something about it, we have a main meridian going over from the top of the forehead, between the eyes and down the back. If I'm in person with the person, I can use a good magnet, but you can just use your hand if you don't have a magnet. It's the magnetic field that matters and the intention, and the magnet is only increasing the power of your intention, and you just make strokes down the back, or if you're doing on yourself, over your head, and the emotion is released in that way. And one of the most common things that people have said after a session to me is that they feel as though they have taken an internal shower, and that they feel much lighter. So it's that's how it's done. Should we talk about the heart wall?
Sure. Yeah, that was my next question. We have, the title talks about freeing our hearts, right? So tell us
Yes.
what freeing our hearts really mean, and of course this heart wall, which is, I think, a major topic of emotion code. So tell us a bit about that.
In order to understand that, when we are injured, especially if people have been injured very deeply, oftentimes this might start right in childhood. What happens is that your heart is so injured that it needs to protect itself. Emotions that are trapped in us can be anywhere in the body, like a kind of a ball of energy. They can also be inherited from your ancestors, through your parents. And the tendency is, if I need something to hide myself, if I'm depressed, I might go and hide under my blanket. The heart needs something to protect itself, so it will tend to take these emotions and lay them in layers around the heart. Dr. Nelson's wife herself said that until he discovered this and released it for her, that she felt as though she was in her group of friends on the outside, looking in. But as soon as this was removed, she really felt as though she was much more a part of everything that was going on. And I have also worked on releasing my own heart wall and on many other people's. In fact, a number of the clients who have contacted me since certification and wanted help have wanted specifically for me to work on a heart wall. I can tell you something, a little bit about my own experience. When I went to look for my own heart wall, Dr. Nelson has told that he had a vision of his wife's heart lying under a hardwood floor. One of the reasons we moved back from the West Indies to New York was because my mother unexpectedly died there already at a relatively young age of breast cancer, and I was not yet 10 years old. In Denmark here, while I was looking for my heart wall, I got a kind of a vision where I could see that when my mother died, I didn't cry at that time. The first time I cried was at the funeral when I actually saw her being buried. And in my mind's eye, I could see that I had buried my heart with her in that coffin. And it was a very powerful experience. And that was the beginning of my working on releasing my heart wall. I finished doing so while I was doing the certification process. It was a cold day in early December of 2018, and I still remember it because when I went out on my bicycle riding that day, I felt like Superwoman. I felt as though I could do anything, and I had so much energy, I couldn't believe it. But that has made it so that I am much more willing to stand up for myself. I feel as though I have an easier time in connection with people, even though I have always loved connecting to people. And I feel much more powerful and empowered to have the energy to be around people, to help other people, to give something of myself since I've done that.
Yeah, it looks like, and it is a beautiful experience that you shared as well. And even in my case, I also did the heart wall releasing, and I personally, I think it was like 3 to 4 sessions we did on releasing, because I also found that while doing heart wall, there can be as many emotions as possible, and not, our body or our subconscious mind is not ready to release all of that at a time. So we kind of spaced it out with the kind of practitioner that I've worked with. But I could feel, as I was doing this, going through this process of releasing layers and layers of these trapped emotions, especially in the heart wall, I could see a lot of changes in my life that was happening, new ways of love coming into life, right? It can be, in general, from clients, or from different relationships in my family. People who haven't been in touch contact with me started talking to me, and there was like so many magical moments that actually happened, and I was relating it. Oh, I see. So it's when we release our heart wall, I believe that, I think the flow of abundance, flow of love starts coming into our lives as well. So that's my personal experience with it. Maybe you can also share some of your client stories and tell us maybe what kind of difference that they kind of experience maybe after going through a heart wall session.
Well, I have done the heart walls of a few different people. Actually, my eldest daughter, who lives with me, she had a very stressed kind of relationship to her father. And in the months before we separated, my husband and I, she wouldn't speak to him at all and said that she simply couldn't manage to do so. I released her heart wall. She had become so stressed that even though she had been a very hardworking student, she had had a job where she worked really hard after she left school, and she traveled to Thailand and lived there on her own for the most of a year, and in the Philippines. But when she came home and had this situation and faced the relationship she had, then she really, it was as though she had simply gotten stuck. She couldn't, she felt she was too stressed to do anything, to take a job, to anything at all. But since I released her heart wall, which was part of the work I did while I was working on certification, she now has a job. She was vegan for a number of years, and she's still basically vegetarian, and she's always been interested in alternative health. She has a job where she's working for a health food store, and she's one of their top sellers. She has been working with some music. She's a great singer, and she has been working on doing some music, and has even put out a couple of pieces of music. And she's recovering. It's as though she's getting her life back in a different way now. So actually, that's the one that I'm happiest about.
That's so beautiful. And might be you're seeing her in front of your eyes, so you really see the difference between how she was
Yes.
and how she is later as well. That's a beautiful, beautiful, amazing way of expressing it. So maybe if you want to share any other client stories as well.
Well, yes, I would. One of the clients, so who I did is a girlfriend of mine, a very good friend that I've had for many, many years, where she was a migrant to Denmark. Her family migrated from Hungary to Denmark when she was just a child. And when I was working on her, I found an emotion of terror. I didn't know anything about her timeline. And I found that this was from the time she was 5 years old. And then she told me that that was the time when her family had to flee Hungary because the Russians invaded, and they just managed to get out, and that it was exactly when she was 5 years old. And we removed a number of things from there. And she felt that a lot of the fear and the things she was scared of in life, that they disappeared away after we moved that and a number of other emotions. I had another one who came to me because she was having conflict with her daughter, which meant with her grown-up daughter, which meant that she wasn't in any contact with her granddaughter. And she was really sorry because she wanted to be able to see her granddaughter. So I did a session for her, and she was one of the ones who said she felt as though she had been a trip through meeting all of her ancestors, getting an internal shower, and turning so much lighter. Within a week or two, I saw her at a social gathering where she turned up and I was, and she had her granddaughter with her. So she was back in contact with her. So I was so happy to see that. And she was, of course, really, really happy. There was another client who I didn't know, she didn't tell me about pain. She came to me for some other reasons. And I released an emotion of frustration from her. And she said even though she hadn't told me, she had this big pain in her back, and it disappeared immediately when I released the frustration, when we released that emotion. But some of the most interesting ones have, funny enough, although I'm not an expert in working with animals, those have been some of the ones that have surprised me the most. Because as we talked about earlier, you can't use a placebo effect on an animal. People can always suspect that, well, human beings, it's because they expect something good to happen, so something good does happen. But you can't tell that to an animal. And a very small one, which was really cute, there was an old friend of mine who I worked together with who had a little dachshund named Louis, and he was 2 years old. And he said, maybe you could try working on him as one of your animals because he's had a cough and it won't go away. And I've been to the vet and they can't find anything wrong, but he's been also looking a bit depressed and down lately, and he's usually not like that. So all I needed to do was release a couple of emotions. And then later on, I rang back to his owner to ask, how is Louis doing? And he said, he almost needs to be brought down a notch. He's so overly full of self-confidence. He's so cheeky now that we can't keep him down at all. He's just so happy and sure of himself. So that went very, very well. And then there have been a couple of other ones. Louis was in a good state, but a couple of the other animal clients that I worked on were not. There was a friend of a friend who I was referred to who had a dog, a female dog, who was extremely afraid whenever she would take her out walking. She was afraid of sounds. She would get aggressive towards other dogs and growl at them. She was relaxed at home, but she had a very difficult time going out. And I did quite a few emotions released from her. And I got back in touch with the owner. And because this was for certification, this was done completely free. And she said it was so much easier to take her for a walk. So after I'd been certified, she was so happy to pay for another session for her dog, and to get a session for herself as well after that. this dog had been actually deserted and abandoned together with the other puppies down in Greece. And when the owner told me what she had been through, I could understand very well why she was so frightened of everything. But she was much better. And then there was the story, of course, about the cat, this female cat who had had numerous owners. And the first owner had made the mistake of not knowing that she was in the washing machine and had actually washed the cat in 30 degrees.
Wow.
And the cat survived it with, luckily, not any strong injuries, but she had chewed through her tongue. So they had to sew her tongue up. She recovered. And then another owner who had had her after that had not taken very good care of her, and she had gotten enormously fat. But this third owner who had taken her because they wanted to try and help her out, and they were going to have a child soon, the cat was very grumpy and didn't want to have anything to do with anyone who came into the house except the owners themselves, and would hiss at them and not want to be touched by them. So I worked on the cat, and then to their surprise, while I was sitting and having a cup of tea with them afterwards, the cat came over and allowed me to actually pet her. So that was lovely to see that animals respond really, really well to this kind of thing. So even though I haven't had so many because I live in the city and most of the clients who come are people, I would be really happy to work on any animals because they respond so well to the emotion code. I have one other thing. There is a woman that I have started working with who herself is very empathic and who contacted me because she felt that now it was time to do something about what was going on with her. She felt no energy and just not really able to move forward in her life. And I worked on her a couple of weeks ago, and I worked on her again today. And one thing that I had a bit of a problem with when I turned in my notebooks to be approved by Dr. Nelson's people was that usually you only find about one inherited emotion for every 10 or so other emotions, personal ones to release. But I had found a whole lot in many of my clients, much more than 1 out of 10. And because of that, they asked me the question. I said, well, I followed the procedure exactly. I did just as I should, and then they approved it. With this woman, I found I don't know how many inherited things that were weighing her down. And at the end of the session today, I asked her, I said, well, how do you feel now? And she said, there's one word that keeps coming to me, and it's wonderment. She just felt as though she simply couldn't understand that she felt so different, and she was actually crying tears. And that kind of experience where people feel that way when they've had a heart wall removed, when they've had heavy ancestral things removed that have been weighing them down, makes everything worthwhile for me, because I feel that there's a lot of garbage on the planet and in our hearts that needs to be cleared up. And if we can do something with these techniques, all of them, to clear up the garbage, then that's just great.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful, amazing stories there. And yes, I completely resonate because I have had, emotion code session for myself as well as for my dogs as well. So I kind of resonated with some of those animal stories that you said, because after doing such emotion code sessions for my dog, it has been like total polar opposite of how he had been previously. And I feel animals are one of those who have the most effect, maybe because they are very pure and innocent, and we can't influence them by with words, right? So that's amazing. So tell us, if the viewers of this video wants to kind of book a session with you, do you do online sessions? How can they kind of come to you?
Especially in these Corona times, most of my sessions have been online, and it's very easy to work together over Zoom or Skype. I do many sessions over Skype with people. So all they have to do is contact me. My email address is, I think, available on the profile. And
Yes.
as you've mentioned, that people can get a 10% discount if they contact on the basis of this. So I would be very happy to do that for anyone who's interested.
Sure, sure. Thank you so much, Liz. So my dear viewers, you have link to Liz right below this video. So you can click on the link, and if you would like to have a session with her, you can contact her, you can talk to her, and maybe discuss about what kind of issues or challenges that you are facing and see how she can help you, and then go ahead with booking the session. As she mentioned, we also have a 10% off discount coupon code for you, and the coupon code is 0 Point. So when you contact Liz, please let her know that you found her from 0 Point Healing, and she'll give you that discount as well. So thank you so much, Liz. That was so beautiful to hear all your beautiful stories, as well as sharing so much information with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishnupriya.
Thank you. So thank you, my dear viewers. I'll see you on my next show. If you're watching this on YouTube, please do click on subscribe, as well as share this video. If you have any family members, especially as she mentioned about pets as well, anybody else going through any major emotional trauma, pain, you can let them know that they have such solution as well, and you can share this video with them. That might help them. So thank you so much. I'm going to see you on my next show. Bye-bye for now.